be screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 7th part of What If Ichigo Joins Pokemon? Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of Strange and Kind 634 of them on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. After a few minutes, Flint came back in and the red hair boy bow and say something to him before he left the place in a hurry. Dad, what did you talk about? The curious brown hair boy asked his father. It's not really important. He just asked me information about the item what was stole last night. Guess he's with the police, Flint tells his son. Oh, Ichigo hears the package. The man pull out something from inside his large bag he is carrying and then gives it to Ichigo. This is it? Ichigo eyes twitch a bit looking at the small box which could have been easily mailed to the professor. Yeah, that's it. It may be small, but the thing inside is very important, so be careful. Ichigo just put it inside his bag. I don't even want to know. Ichigo took a deep breath and relaxed. Finally, I can get back. Brock and Flint just look at each other in confusion at Ichigo's remark. Ash, Leaf, Gary, we heading back. This stopped the three in what they were doing and quickly moved towards him with Forrest following and standing beside his father and brother. What? But I want to see other places too, Ash whines. No Ash, your mom is already worried enough. You can travel when you become a trainer, okay? Ichigo says to the boy and Ash just accepted it before got prepare and grab his bag. Yet Ash, don't you miss your mom? Leaf asks the boy. Of course I do, Ash says, and they all turn to Gary who hasn't say anything. What? Was the only thing Gary say when they all look at him. Gary got sick of the stares and shouts and admits it. Fine, I miss Sis and Gramps too. Leaf and Ash just laughs at him. Gary, it's not embarrassing to admit something like that, Leaf tells the boy, and Gary just give her a whatever look. Later, we found our heroes with Brock and his father walking towards the bus station. Ichigo, this time let's go home using the bus and not to Viridian City cause my feet hurts, okay? Leaf tells Ichigo, who just tell her that he'll think about it. While they were walking towards the station, someone familiar came towards the group. Ichigo eyes widen a bit and Brock eyes turns into love over the person who is coming towards them, and Flint just nervously laughs at his son's behavior and Gary looks pissed. And with a giant leap Brock move forward to the girl and he then kneel down. If this is destiny I don't know why, but he stops in his track as the girl just walk past him and a small crack can be heard. What was that sound? Ash asks confused. Flint just laughs nervously. That must be Brock's world falling apart, haha. The girl now standing in front of Ichigo orange. A tick mark appears on Ichigo's head at her statement before he suddenly realized, oh, you're that girl from the ship, right? The girl nods with a small smile. Maybe she got happy at being remembered by him, which surprised Ichigo as he thought she could not smile from how she acted the first time they met. Well, it's nice seeing you again, and the name is Ichigo, not Orange. Ash and Gary laughs on the sideline at her word. Orange? She says again. No, it's Ichigo. Ichigo. He says it loudly word by word. The girl tilts her head and then introduces herself. Courtney. She pointed a finger at herself. Ichigo just slumps down. She completely ignore what I say. Ichigo thought. Brock saw how the cute girl attention is at Ichigo and not him and drown in depression. Oh, what a cruel world. Charmeleon just patted at the boy's back. Brock, don't be like that. You're still young, there's plenty of girls out there. Flint tried to cheer his son up, which didn't seem to work at all. Ichigo, is she your girlfriend? Leaf asks cautiously, but inside she is excited. Girl? Friend? I am, not familiar. With the term, Courtney got confused, blinking, and then turns to Ichigo curiously. Ichigo saw her stare. No, I'm not going to explain what it means. Ichigo tells her, not wanting to get into another embarrassing moment. A girlfriend is someone who is really special to a certain boy she likes or is interested in. Leaf explains to her, trying to sound like a teacher. Courtney nodded, understanding what she is saying, and then she turns to Ichigo, mate. What? That is completely different. Ichigo now getting frustrated. Gary now laughing so hard on the ground beside Ash, who is now confused at what they were saying. Ichigo, why didn't you tell me you had a girlfriend? Leaf says to Ichigo, who now has a tick mark on his head, for the last time. I don't have a girlfriend, Ichigo shouts to the sky. Tilda ha 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 Tilda. Courtney giggles melodically with her hands covering her mouth at Ichigo's flush face or a piss-off face. Leafs joins her and starts laughing, which deepened Ichigo's scowl before his frown slowly fades at seeing how happy they were laughing together. Ichigo just sighs, why are you here anyway? Courtney stops her giggling and turns to Ichigo, then she just put a finger on her lips indicated that it as a secret which Ichigo didn't push her to answer. Well, it was nice seeing you again, but we have to go now, Ichigo tells her. Courtney just look at him before she quickly hugs Ichigo before he could leave. Orange. Warm tilde. The whole group got shocked at her action. And Brock got really jealous at Ichigo while chewing on his shirt. Leaf squeal at the two. Gary jaws drop and Ash just look really bored. Ichigo blinks at her action, not really getting embarrassed as a hug was common thing, but when she sniffs him a tick mark appear on Ichigo's head, and he bonks her head, which she recoil back and stare at Ichigo with a confused look. Sorry, but that wasn't right. A hug I can take, but sniffing people not so much. Courtney just keeps staring while rubbing her head. Then suddenly, brother, we got to hurry. The bus. Ash shouted at Ichigo, who comically tried to find his bag, but couldn't find it until Courtney hands it to him. Ichigo gives her a kind smile before he grabs Leaf and Gary and runs towards the bus where Ash and Charmeleon were waiting for him. Brock and his father with Forest wave goodbye at Ichigo and the others. Courtney cheeks turns red bit at his smile she had received, which confuse her at the emotions she is feeling touching the spot where he hit her. She could only feel a pleasant feeling inside. Orange. Till next time, tilde ha 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 tilde. She then disappear without anyone noticing it. And from the side of the road, the same red scarlet hair boy saw them and recognized the girl who was the one who robbed the museum. This is strange. What could be their connection? He thought, but when he tried to go after the girl, she had already disappeared without him knowing it. The ride back to Pallet Town wasn't as relaxing as Ichigo thought, with Leaf bugging him about the girl and Ash and Gary still arguing about who holds the badge and who doesn't. I just want to get back fast and hope I can relax back home. After a while, they all calm down and sleep on their respective seats, with Ash and Charmeleon sitting together and Leaf and Gary sleeping on their sits. And slowly Darkrai came out of Ichigo's shadow. Darkrai still shy around other people, The dark-type Pokemon nods and sit beside Ichigo and stay silent like always. I knew I felt that something was missing. Even the damn hollow hasn't said anything or contact me. The two then slowly relax on their sits. Pallet Town. Finally reaching back to Pallet Town, Ichigo and the three kids got out of the bus and stood in front of the town's entrance before Ash quickly runs towards the professor lab while shouting, "We're back!" Leaf too running with Teddiursa, not wanting to be upstart by Ash. Ichigo and Gary just walk towards the lab, with Gary sighing at his friend's behavior. Later, we Ichigo inside the lab, and he breath out heavily, happy that he finally is able to finish the job. Okay, here's the package, Professor. Now hand over the book. Ichigo put the package on the desk where Professor Oak is writing something. Oh, Ichigo, I see that you were able to get the package. Good. Professor Oak then hands him the book. Ichigo then checked the book before he put it inside his bag for it to be read later. He then turns to the package that the professor is slowly opening. So, what is it? Just watch and you'll see, was the only response he got back from the old man. The professor begins unwrapping the box and pull out the strings that was holding the box tight before he slowly pull out a paper. A paper was the only thought that came into the exhausted boy. It's a recipe to a very delicious cuisine. Oh, and a sample too. The professor got excited at it. You mean to tell me that I had to go through all the things that happened today because of some stupid food? Ichigo growls at the professor, who just ignore him and say, and it was worth it? Ahahaha. Before he eat on the sample that looks like a jelly purple substance. Now, Ichigo, I know it may seem stupid, but look at this in another way. The professor inquired, which confused Ichigo, but he still looked pissed enough to storm out of the room. Other than the book. What other way? Ichigo looked at the professor with an annoyed look. The professor then points his finger at the window. Ichigo got confused and walked closer to the open window and see Ash, Leaf, Gary telling the other kids in town about their adventure. and how cool he was. Those three have been telling about you to the other kids in town and how amazing you are to them. They really admire you, you know? Ichigo turns back to Ash the other two who saw him and turns to him while waving their hands at him. Ichigo responded by waving his own with a smile, and that somehow make the girls around Leaf giggling a bit. Guess you're right. Professor Oak breaths out relief inward. Phew, I can't believe that work. Ichigo then turns back and went straight towards the door and walk outside towards the Ketchum house, which he now call it his home. Ichigo, wait. A feminine voice stop him on his track, and he turns to see Daisy running to him and breathing heavily after she catch up to him. Huff huff Ichigo, you sure walk fast. You need something, Daisy? Ichigo asks the girl who is now standing in front of him. Daisy blinks a few times at seeing Ichigo now at the same height as her. Before Ichigo was shorter than her, but now. Ichigo, did you have a growth sprout? You seem to be taller, Daisy curiously asks the orange hair boy. Ichigo look at himself before looking back at her and just shrug it off. Daisy, forget about that, why did you call out to me? Daisy then giggles at Ichigo behavior. Ichigo, you're growing up so fast. She then patted his head with Ichigo's sweat drops at her. Daisy. Oh, sorry, the reason I call out to you is because I need your help. Ichigo raise a brow at her. Why? Daisy then pulls out a pamphlet from her clipboard, which she always seems to be carrying, and hands it to Ichigo. Pokemon Summer Academy. Ichigo read it out as this was the first time he heard it. Yeah, it's something Grandpa always hosted every 5 years or so on the ranch for young kids and beginner trainers. Daisy explains it to him. So why did you need help for? Ichigo asks her, not really getting it. You see, this year we're kinda short-handed, and most of us who are available are female. And some of the other stuff we haven't finished are kind of a heavy work. If we don't get more help, we won't be able to finish in time. So, could you help out? Daisy sincerely asks Ichigo, who just scowl before he sighs. Okay. Daisy happily smile at him. Thank you. So when do we start? Ichigo asks for necessary information. Tomorrow, just come after breakfast, she tells him before she left, saying goodnight to him. You're a real sucker for the ladies, aren't you, Kingy? Hollow for the first time in the day says to him, and a tick mark appears on his head. And where were you? Ichigo mentally asks back. That's for me to know, and for you to find out, Hollow answers him back, not really willing to tell him. Ichigo then walks back to his destination. Did you get the book? Yeah, Ichigo responds back, not too excitedly though after all that had happened. Well, get moving, idiot, it's time to read. Hollow shouts inside his head, which Ichigo began having second thoughts about getting the book before he heads back to the Ketchum house. The night that day wasn't so relaxing for our orange hero, as he began reading the book after finishing dinner, and then went straight to his room, and he tried to concentrate on the book, which could possibly help him get stronger, or at least make him be more aware of his aura. Aura, the life force that exists in the world, and that is always around us. It is within every living thing. He flips the pages from one chapter to another, trying to find more things that concerns about possessing strong aura. It is the life force which balances life. There are some who can control it without disrupting the balance, and they normally go by the title of Aura Guardian. Ichigo's eyes widen a bit before he continues. But others who use in such unorthodox ways that it corrupts the life force or aura inside them and give them extraordinary power, but resulted in causing much harm to their mind and body. These practitioners were named Shadow Fiends. They came into being when one human who was filled with jealousy and greed towards his fellow Aura Guardian's power made a deal with a dark being so old that history has forgotten it. Ichigo stopped reading as the lower page of the content is missing or wasn't finished. He continued reading the other pages before he slowly fell asleep on the desk inside his room with the book in his hand. After a while, Darkrai and Charmeleon came into the room to find their friend and trainer asleep on his desk. The two look at each other before they carefully move him into the bed and tuck him in and put the book he was ready on his desk. Ichigo's Dreamscape. We find our orange color hair hero talking to his counterpart Hollow, or his instinct, as he had proclaimed himself at the first time Ichigo had met him. Okay, let me get this straight. Ichigo sat down on the side of his building inside his mindscape with Hollow, who is sitting on the opposite side of him. Arceus, the god of Pokemon as he claims himself to be. He is their god. Hollow cut in which Ichigo ignores and continue. And he wants me to train in the way of aura as he again told you, and also help this so-called chosen one in the future to fight against some evil that will try to envelop the world in darkness. Ichigo just gave him a dull look. Yep, that's it. Easy, right? Hollow gives him a smirk. If you're telling the truth, then how am I gonna do that? Ichigo shouts the last part at Hollow, who just covers his ears. Sheesh, King, I thought you would take the news a bit more lightly, Hollow says while picking his ear. Well, I didn't. Ichigo now look pissed that he has to do something so troublesome in the near future, and he has to train like hell to be ready for such a thing. Moving on, the big guy wants you to have this key as he described it. Hollow hands him a small-looking key with a weird shape, and the key was all silver in color. There's a silver string on it as it could be wore as necklace. Ichigo examines the small object on his hand. What does it do? Intrigued by the shape and the feeling that the small thing was producing, Ichigo put it on his neck before a small wave of silver color energy blew around him, which Ichigo blinks surprise. Well, the only thing that he said was that it protects the bearer and can only be carried by someone with a pure heart. Ha, guess you got a pure heart, Hollow informs him before he got from his spot and stretch his hands and legs. What are you doing? What else? I'm gonna train you how to properly use Aura Kingi, so get up and get ready and don't worry about the lizard and that freaky thing. I sent them on another area to train, Hollow tells him before gesturing to follow him. Ichigo knows what he's talking about. Darkrai too had somehow entered his dream, maybe because he is a nightmare being who has the power to alter dreams. He then gets up and follows Hollow to start his training. The next day, Ichigo woke early to prepare dinner with Delia before he went to the professor's lab to find Daisy and start helping her to prepare the summer academy with his Pokemon following him to help out. Inside the Ketchum residence, Ash woke up early to do whatever he is going to do with his friends or get himself in another trouble, as he usually does with Gary and Leaf. Hua-ah. Ash yawns while entering the kitchen to get breakfast but blinks after see someone missing. Good morning, Ash, his mother greeted him like always. Delia saw the confused look on his face and asked, Honey, is something wrong? Ash then turns to her, Mom, where's brother? Delia then placed cereal and milk for him on the table. Ichigo is helping Daisy prepare for the summer camp, so he got up early and went to help her. Summer camp? Ash mumbled confused as he has never heard it before. What do you mean by that, Mom? It's an event the professor hosts every few years for young kids like you, and this year it's decided to start next month, Delia dreamily tells her son as she laments on the years she too had attended. Ash got really excited at it. Can I go too, Mom? Ash pleaded her mother. Sure, honey. Ash then jumps up happily with Mr. Mime, who somehow appears beside him. But Ash, you have to promise me that you won't disturb Ichigo while they are setting up the place, Delia warns her son. Ash then slumps down, but Delia gives her son a stern look. Promise. Okay, Ash say before he quickly got back up and ran outside to tell Leaf and Gary, leaving a smiling Delia and a confused Mr. Mime. 2 weeks has passed and Ichigo is now hammering the sideboard up high, using a ladder for welcoming the participants for the camp. No, Ichigo, put it a little to the left, Professor Oak tells him from below. Ichigo turns to him and sighs before he then pull out the nails and did it like the professor said, and he starts once again. Ichigo, the sign should be a little to the right. This time Daisy tells him from below as she is standing with Charmeleon, both holding on to various materials for the events that will be held during the summer camp. His eye twitch a bit. I was almost finished. Ichigo thought before he starts all over again, and finally he finish. There, I'm done, he says to himself. Ichigo, I told you before, a little to the left, Professor came back. Ichigo eyes twitch and just ignores him and climbs down the ladder and grumbles his way back to the lab to move on to another work. Honestly, that boy's temper is like a primate who just evolved, the professor says while watching him. And another week passes by with Darkrai using Psychic to lift some large woods and place it beside the stage that Ichigo is currently working on with some help from Daisy Friends, which seem to be comprising of only girls. There were boys, but why am I the only guy who can do heavy duty around here? Ichigo scowls before he turns to the side and sees the only guys beside him were working on the electronics. Haha, look at how scrawny those guys are. A couple of nerds if you ask me, ha ha ha. Hollow laughs inside his head. Ichigo sighs. I really hate this. Some of the girls that were around him that are helping him look at him with some blushes. Ichigo, where do I put this? One of the girls asks him, trying to get a closer look at his face. Ichigo turns to her and points it on the back of the stage. Those can come later, so put on the backstage for the time being. The girl nods and moves, also secretly happy that she gets to see his feature up close. Then one by one the girls bother Ichigo about things that could probably do themselves. Ichigo, how do I put this on the board again? Ichigo, can you help me over there, Tilda? Ichigo, could you give a hand? It's kind of heavy. Ichigo, do you have a girlfriend?
Haha.
Lady Killer. Ichigo is now trapped by all the girls and he starts to sweats by all their questions. Daisy saw Ichigo's predicament and walks to them. Now girls, we have to finish this quickly before we meet our deadline. She pulls out Ichigo from them. And stop pestering Ichigo, who is kind enough to help us out. She gives them a stern look, which the girls boo at her before returning back to their work. Thanks Daisy, Ichigo breathes out relief at her action. No problem Ichigo, and don't blame them, okay, cause you are quite fetching to the eyes, Tilda. She teased him a bit, which Ichigo cheeks redden a bit, and the day progress well, with Darkrai getting thanks from all the workers and Charmeleon getting treats from the girls for helping out. Charmeleon says happily while getting petted by the girls. And the three kids came that day and help Ichigo out too, with Ash carrying plywoods, with Gary who doesn't seem too excited about it, and Leaf who gives Ichigo water, and also shooing away the girls away from Ichigo, which he finds it very helpful and also embarrassing. And the month slowly passed by, and the day of the Kanto's Summer Academy starts, with children from all over the region as well as from other regions came. And now we find Ichigo being one of the staff members of the camp, with a cap saying summer camp and a shirt saying staff. I hope this camp thing isn't too long, huh? Ichigo sighs to himself while carrying a box full of refreshment, with Charmeleon following him also carrying other things. Darkrai had already went back inside Ichigo's shadow, as there were too many people around. Ichigo turns to his side and sees Gary running towards him. Gary, what are you doing here? The boy breathes heavily. Ash huff and Leaf got excited huff, and they ditch me, Gary say in between breathing heavily. Ichigo scratches cheeks, and then he pull out his cap before putting on Gary's head, which kinda seemed to be too big for him. How about you come with me for a bit until Ash and Leaf are in sight? Ichigo grins at the boy. Gary nods from under the large cap and says, okay, beats not having anything to do. The three then moves their way towards the campsite, which is held on the larger area of the campsite, which had already started with the professor standing in front of the large numbers of kids, which kind of make the old man happy that they have this many participants. Today we welcome all of you for coming here. Now we'll be doing many things to the course of the summer camp, from the professor trail off. Adventuring, he change into a hiker's outfit. Creating bonds, and change into his summer dress. And most importantly, having fun. He shouts and change back to his outfits, and the kids responded quite loudly, finding him funny and also getting excited. Yeah, they cheer. And from the sideline, Ichigo, Daisy and Gary look at him, one with a dull look, another with a giggle, and the youngest of them with an embarrassed look. Gramps is taking it too far with that introductions before he got hit on the head. Oh, sis, he says while rubbing his head. Now Gary, don't say bad stuff about Grandpa. Even he sometime does things that can be say as a normal thing. She gives the look, which Gary mumble things. Ichigo look at Ash and Leaf, who were with the crowds of children happily talking to one of the kids. Guess it'll be worth it, he thought to himself. And the day progress with a bang, literally with a confetti cannon. The first day begin with choosing teams with a group of 4 kids, getting to know their teammates with battle, or just hanging out, and Ichigo is one of the staff who is choosing the teams. Okay, Team Mankey, here is the dorm key you'll be staying. The 4 kids thank him and move towards the side of the camp where there are a number of small camp house able to fit a number of kids. Okay, Team Magby, here is your key. He handed it to a group of girls who giggle at him before they went on their way to the camp houses. Ichigo then checked the clipboard and finds that only Team Teddiursa hasn't finished yet, and he then walked to them. Ash, aren't you guys ready yet? The 3 kids turns to him. But we can't find a 4th member, Ash tells him. And whose fault is that? Gary and Leaf glares at Ash, who just scratches his head nervously. Ichigo then look around and found a girl with a straw hat and honey blonde hair. How about her? Ichigo pointed at the girl who seems to trying to hide, or she's too shy. Ash then quickly runs to her and introduces himself to her before they all went to their camp house. This kid's, Ichigo scratched his cheek and then walked back to the staff room. Wish I could get paid for this, he thought. The day progressed with the kids getting Pokemon from the professor to be their partner for the rest of the summer camp. Teams battle any one of the other teams and the staff being referee for these battles. Yay! I got a Krabby, Ash declares, and the Pokemon just pinch on his butt, and with great pain Ash runs around. Oh, stop that! The girl that became their fourth member giggles at him. An Eevee? Cool, Gary say while patting the Pokemon Eva. The Pokemon wags its tail. I'm gonna use my Teddiursa instead, Leaf says while hugging the Pokemon. So what did you get, Serena? Leaf turns to her. I got a Ralt. I think, Serena shyly says to her while holding the small Pokemon who also seems to be a shy one. Ash runs back to them and look at all the Pokemon awesome. And the day continue with Ash winning a battle with some kid with a Rattata, Gary winning a battle with swift attacks against a girl with a Vulpix. Leaf and Serena tag team and beat two boys who both use a matchup. The day ends with Ash's mom Delia cooking for them with Ichigo's help. The next day, everyone began making different things from clay with the help of the Pokemons they had been temporarily given from all sorts of figures like a mug. Ash made a volcano with Krabby's help and everyone sweat drop at him. Gary made a small figure of Eevee with the clay and show a smug look at Ash, beat that. Leaf made a pot with Teddiursa spinning it and Serena made a small but excellent design of a house with Ralt's help. Arg, guess I don't have a talent, Ash slumps with a dark cloud and Serena tries to cheer him up by patting on his back. Ichigo then look at the others who seem to having trouble of their own. And the third day came with them swimming in the lake and Ichigo as the lifeguard with the other staffs around the lake looking over the kids for any help. Krabby, faster, Ash yells while he holds on to the water Pokemon as they swim together. Gary and the two girls just sat beside the lake under a large umbrella. The fourth day was them having quiz with the staffs, taking a few teams with them and ask question and Ichigo with Charmeleon besides him inside a room that would look like a classroom. Okay, the first question is how many types of Pokemon are there? Ash then quickly answers, there are 18 types. Ichigo raise and brow before he smiles at him, correct, and his team give him compliments. Ash, you got it right, Serena say happily with Leaf smiling at him. Guess you're not as stupid as I thought you were. Gary grins at him before Ash jumps on him again. Serena look worried at the two that they might get hurt. Leaf just ignore them and Ichigo rubs his head before he continue and ask the other teams. The fifth day then goes away with learning things from the professor about the Pokemon, and that is why you should never go near huge trees where a nest of Beedrills are living. Some of you may already know that. The professor looks specifically at Ash and Gary who just laughs nervously. The sixth day continues with each team having to get various flags from around the place where and finally reach back to the finish line that is located on the front of the professor's lab. And Team Teddiursa quickly move, but Ash got too excited and runs forwards, leaving them behind. Gary too runs, not wanting to get upstart by his rival with Leaf following behind. Serena tried to follow the three, but she got left behind as she wasn't too good in this kinds of things. Wait, you guys. Serena begins looking for the three inside the forest that holds the various flags, but she couldn't find any of them, and she look at Ralts before she walk again. Where is everybody? Where did you all go? Serena yells for them, but to no avail, it didn't work. Then she hears something and turns to a bush shaking a lot. Ash, Leaf, Gary, is that you? She nervously walked closer to the bush with Ralts beside her. Then suddenly a Poliwag with a flag on its mouth jumps out of the bush, surprising her, and made her fall down on the ground. Oh, and it then hops away from her. Then tears begins to form in her eyes. I knew I didn't want to go to camp. Sniff, I just knew it, sniff. And her tears began to fall as she could take any more with the pain on her knee, and how tired she is. Ralts try to calm her by embracing her. Mommy, she yells out. After a while the bush on her side begins to shake again, and this time she back up scared even with the pain on her knees. Who's there? She got frightened and Ralts tries to be strong for her by standing in front of her. Krabby, faster, that Poliwag got our flag. Ash and Krabby jumps out of the bush and lands on the ground, and look around for the Pokemon Ash. The boy turns to see his teammate Serena on the ground with tears on her eyes. Serena, so this is where you are. Well, come on, help me find the Pokemon. Ash jolly says it, but, Serena says while looking at her knees that seems to swollen a bit from her fall. Ash sees the bruise and quickly kneels down. Here, this should help. Ash then slowly wrap his handkerchief on her swollen knee. There, all done. Serena tries to move but can't. Oh, Ash then put his hands on her knee. Okay, how about this? Feel better, right away. Ash spread his arms to the sky. Serena tries again, but the pain is too unbearable. Oh, it still hurts. I can't get up, and tears begin to form again. Ash then stands up. Don't give up till it's over. Okay, Serena, just look at him, and then he extends his hand to her. Come on. The girl grabs on his hand before Ash pulls her up, which kinda shirks the space between them, and from a view I can be seen as they are hugging. Serena getting flusterbacks and sees Ash giving her a big smile. Let's head back. I know someone who can make your pain go away, Ash confidently tells her. Serena just look at Ash in bewilder and let him pull her by her hand. Ralts and Krabby follows behind. Ichigo is now sitting on a chair relaxing with Charmeleon besides him. Finally relaxation with Charmeleon too doing the same. Brother, Ichigo then slumps on his chair. Guess I said that too soon. Ichigo turns to see Ash pulling Serena, who seems to be limping. Ash, what happened this time? He gives him the look which Ash didn't take kindly to it. Hey, stop looking at me like I get into trouble all the time. Ash turns and huffs. Ichigo then look at Serena's knee. Did you get hurt, Serena? He asks the girl who nods. Brother, do your awesome magic on her to make the pain go away. Ash say with sparkles in his eyes. Ichigo just sighs and Serena has a confused look. Okay, come over here. Serena then sits on the small chair beside Ichigo, and Ichigo put his palm on her knee. Serena eyes widen when Ichigo's hand glow and got even more surprised as the pain on her knees starts to fade. After a few seconds, there you go, that's all better. Ichigo then tells them to be careful next time. Ash just gives him a thumbs up and walk away with a befuddled Serena. Ichigo just rubs his head. See, I told you, he's the best. Serena just look at Ash before a smile forms on her mouth. You both are, she silently says to herself, and the day ends with Team Zizzagoon winning the event. And in Team Teddiursa Camp House, Leaf and Gary look at Ash with a glare. What do you have to say for yourself? Ash just looks down and keeps saying sorry to the two. It wasn't his fault because of me he got. Serena comes to his defense but could finish her sentence. Gary and Leaf eyes soften at seeing the girl shaking trying to say something. It's okay Serena, we don't blame you. Leaf tells her before giving Ash a you're lucky this time look, and Ash just breathes relief. The final day came with the professor standing in front of all of them. Today is going to be our last day in the camp here for this year. The kids got down that the camp is coming to an end, and also we'll be announcing the team who wins the trophy for the best team in this summer camp. That surprised the kids as they never knew that they had somehow enter a competition. You might be confused, but it was all planned and all our staff's member have graded you all with the bonds you have created with the Pokemons and with your teammates, as well as the recent events that we had held during the last few days, he tells them. Ash, if we don't win this, I'm gonna blame you. Leaf threatened him. Ash just gulps and Serena giggles and Gary too was getting excited for the results. Daisy walks beside his grandfather and hands him a piece of paper, and the winners goes to. A drumming sound is played. Team Mankey. The team jumps and celebrates, and Leaf with Gary begins to clubber on Ash, and Serena tries to stop by saying that it wasn't all that bad. And the second places goes to Team Teddiursa. Then the two stop clobbering their friend and jumps and yells, yay. Ash weakly pull his hands up, yay. Serena panic at Ash condition. Daisy and Ichigo sweat drops at their younger siblings. And the third place goes to Team Squirtle, and the day ends with them having a bonfire in the night with dancing around the fire with some kids shyly asking the girls to dance. Ichigo too is dancing, but he is dancing with different girls one at a time. I really hate myself, Ichigo tells to himself. Some of the guys were glaring at him. Buck up and enjoy, King. Not everybody gets the chance to do what you are doing, Hollow says to him. Ichigo just grunt as he begins to dance with another girl. On the sideline of the dance, Serena keeps staring at the boys and girls dancing and sighs to herself, "Serena, what are you doing all the way here?" She suddenly jumps a bit and turns to see Ash eating on some food. Serena just gives him a weirdly smile, "Oh, nothing." Ash then turns at the dance trying to see what was bugging her and also see Gary and Leaf dancing together. She must feel left out, Ash thought, then put down the food and grabs her. "Ash, what are you doing?" Serena shudder, already getting the idea. "What else? Let's go dancing." He pulls her towards the bonfire and a smile forms on her lips. And with our orange hero, who doesn't seem too excited, look deadbeat, and he is now sitting on a chair. "Ugh, I'm never gonna do this again," he tells himself. "Don't say that. Didn't you have a lot of fun?" Ichigo turns and see Delia standing beside him with Mr. Mime. Ichigo turns back to the dance where Gary, Leaf, Ash and Serena are dancing. "Guess I did." Delia saw her son dancing with a girl before she starts taking a lot of pictures with Mr. Mime. "Oh, isn't Ash look so adorable dancing with that girl?" she squeals. Beside her, Daisy too is taking picture of Gary. "Not you too." Ichigo look the two with a dull look. The night engulfs the land and all of them return to their dorms. And inside the team Teddierce's room, Ash and Gary were sleeping soundly, or I guess Ash kinda snore a little. Leaf and Serena were talking about something which lead to Serena getting flush. "Leaf, stop it," Serena whispers to her. "Come on Serena, just answer me. Do you like Ash or not?" And the night goes on with the sky giving a cool breeze and the moon shining bright along with the stars. And the next day came with all the kids packing up, and they all gather in front of the professors and his staffs besides the exit to the summer camp. "We finally have come to the end of our journey here. But that doesn't mean that you should forget the bonds you have created and friends you made. Also, remember that your adventure doesn't end here. It's only the beginning." The professor then steps down before one of the staffs came up and say other things. Serena look around and finds the other kids crying and saying goodbye to the friends that they had made before she turns to the friends that she had made. Ash, Leaf and Gary smiles at her before Ash yells "group hug," and he pull of them together for a tight hug. "I'm gonna miss you guys," Serena says while tears slowly falls down her eyes. Leaf and Gary just give her a sad smile, but Ash grabs both her shoulder quickly and give a serious look, snapping her out of her sadness. "Serena, this isn't goodbye. You've got to remember that we will see each other again." Serena face turns shock at his declaration. And Ash just grins at her. And then Team Teddierce apart with Ash, Leaf and Gary saying goodbye to her. "See ya." Ash waves both his hands with Leaf. Serena too waves her hand from inside her mom's car. "You too." The wind pick up and blow her straw hat towards the opposite direction and lands on Ash's head. "Huh?" Gary and Leaf laughs at him. And from the distance Serena giggles before she could not be seen anymore. Ichigo walks to them and put his hand on the straw hat cover. "Boy, did you three had fun?" he asks the three who just watch at the horizon, and they just nod at him. "Great, how about you three help me clean up?" The three just whines tiredly before following him. Ichigo turns to see Ash still standing. "Ash, you coming?" Ash turns to him before carrying the straw hat and runs to his side. 1 year later. Another year has passed since the whole fiasco with the summer camp. Ichigo had used his free time to hone his and Charmeleon skills, and with the occasional addition of Darkrai from time to time. Cynthia had also called him from time to time, but Ichigo, being a bit of an idiot, wasn't always there when she called, and he was only able to talk to her for 3 times apart from the 32 times she called. He got an earful from Leaf and Delia. Cynthia, being the calm and patient one, just said it was okay. Yep. It was quite an eventful year for him. Ichigo had occasionally go out the town on other cities, some due to the professor, other times was due to orders from Arceus, which wasn't many. He and the 3 kids too had their own adventure, which somehow got them into trouble. Now, Ichigo, with the age of 12, sleeping in after all the work he does at night in the locals and night deliveries he had been doing for the past few months, as he couldn't just freeload inside the Ketchum's residence, which the family said that he is family, but he could, so he did. Then sudden from the door to his room opens quickly with a 2 black blurs flying towards him fast. "Brother." "Char." Ichigo somehow with his instinct quickly moves and grab the 2 assailants on their back. "Ash, I told you 1,000 times to knock first, and Charmeleon, you should know better," Ichigo warns the 2. "But it's today," Ash struggles. "Today?" Ichigo got confused. Ash palms his cheek. Don't you remember? We going on a vacation, Ash and Charmeleon cheers. Ichigo then drops them both before he walks to the calendar and bit his lip. Drat. Where are we going again? Ichigo asks Ash, who can't believe that he had already forgot it, to Unova. Inside a hospital located in Hone, we find a man with red hair, impatiently pacing back and forth in front of a room that has a sign on the top saying emergence room. Getting more impatient, the man finally sat down on the sits beside the wall. Why is this taking so long? The man put down his spectacle and rubbed his temple, getting a bit drowsy. All of this happened so sudden, dear, the man thought to himself with a tired expression. An hour later, the door to the room opened up and a man wearing a doctor's coat comes out and walked to the red-hair man with a grim look on his face. Sir? Before the doctor could finish, she didn't make it, did she? The red-hair man tiredly spoke up to the doctor while looking down on the floor. I'm sorry. The red-hair man didn't respond and just stayed quiet with a lone tear slowly falling down his eye. What about the infant? The baby made it, but the doctor hesitated. The red-hair man then looked up at the doctor with an intense gaze. Yes, the doctor take a step back, frightened a bit. Sir, we done all we could, but since the mother had suffered too much, it somehow affected the unborn child. I'm asking you the infant's condition, not how it got it, the red-hair demanded. He couldn't control the anger rising inside him after hearing that his wife didn't make it. The doctor then gestured him to follow him. Walking towards the door of the room where his fear might come true, the man grips his hands tightly at growing tension inside him. The two enter the room and one of the nurse pulled a curtain and showed the red-hair man his wife. Courtney, how I failed you, the man solemnly said to his wife, who had already passed away, while brushing her lilac-like purple long beautiful hair. Double-aya. The man snapped from his trance, looking at his wife, and turned to see one of the nurses holding something. Is that? The doctor nodded. The nurse carefully handed it to him. The red-hair man then again felt tears falling down his eyes at seeing the infant on his arms. The baby's a girl, the doctor sadly told him. The red-hair man looked at the infant, beautiful pale complexion. She looked just like her mother. The man stroked the sleeping infant's cheek. The man then sees something strange on the right side of the infant's eye, her side. The man then turned to the doctor. Explain. Like I said before, the baby sustained some damage while inside the mother's womb. Then fix her. You're a doctor, aren't you? The red-hair man finally snapped at the doctor. The doctor just looked down. We tried, but we couldn't do much for her. The baby then began to cry. Doboa. The red hair, through pure sheer luck, somehow calmed down the infant. SHSH, do not worry, Courtney. I will protect you. The man smiled down at his child. The doctor raised a brow at the man. Sir, is it wise to name her after her mother? The doctor looked at him. The red-hair man ignored him and pulled out a phone from his pocket. Yes, this is Maxie. I need your assistance for something. You still have that prototype piece, don't you? I don't care. I need to save my daughter. Do you understand? Yes, yes. Then prepare and come to my location. Then the man now named Maxie put down his phone. He then moved back to his wife's body. Dear, I promise I will protect our daughter. The man then touched her face. Sir. 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 Daydream ends. Sir. The same red hair opened his eyes while sweating a bit after having a daydream of his most dreaded day. Sir, are you all right? Maxie turned to his assistant. Yes, I'm fine, Cindy. His assistant just accepted his answer. And Cindy, why did you disturb me? The man then looked at her. It's Agent C, sir. She has returned from her mission. Maxie nodded. Then bring her in. His assistant Cindy then walks to the door of his office and pulled it open. You can come in, she said it to the person outside. Then came in Courtney with her hood on, and she then walked to her leader. Mission complete. Leader Maxie Tilda, she happily said to him. Maxie nodded. Good, Courtney, but there is something that troubles me. Courtney tilts her head to the side. True, Blee? Yes, and before he could finish, Maxie sees something on the girl's hand. Courtney, what is that on your hand? He looked at her with a curious gaze. Courtney then put both her hands on her back and trying to hide something. It is nothing. Leader Maxie. Maxie didn't believe it. He knows the girl too well. And how she act? Courtney, Maxie warned her. Courtney dejectedly gave it to him. Maxie then looked at it and sees that it was a picture of a certain orange hair boy. Is this why you didn't immediately return after finishing your mission? He turned to her with a non-emotion look, but inside his anger seems to rise. Courtney slowly nodded while looking down on the floor, too afraid to say anything. Taking a deep breath, Maxie then rubbed his temple and put down the photo. Courtney, you are not allowed to make in contact with this boy, are we clear? Courtney's eyes widen a bit. Boo. Are we clear? This time with a harsher voice. Courtney flinched at his words, but slowly she nodded again. Good, now seeing that you've finished, you are dismissed for the day. Courtney sneaked a look at the photo while rubbing her left eye side. Maxie then saw the way she was touching her right eye for some time. It's acting up again, isn't it? The girl nodded. Then go to the infirmary for a checkup. Courtney then walked out of the room with her normal expression, but her hands are gripped tightly. Sir, was it a good idea? His assistant looked at the picture. Yes, was the only response she got. Before then, man told her to give him time to himself. Later, inside a large room with the inside being a beautiful design, but also empty, with the room only comprising of a single large bed, a chair, a mirror, and a large window. Other than that, the place looked empty but spotless. And also a certain purple short lilac color hair girl sit flat on the bed with her clothes changed that to a large undershirt. Why? Courtney just looked at the open window with a hollow expression while her arms slumped down on the bed, looking a bit tired. Courtney could understand what she is feeling now, and the torment of what her leader words was confusing her. Why? Still looking at the window, she tightly grips on a certain worn bandages. Just to be clear, all this happened after she departed from Ichigo in Pewter City. Pallet Town, present time. Is that all? Professor asked while putting a briefcase on the back of a large bus that was scheduled to move in 9 a.m. to the airport in Vermilion City, as his jeep was too small to hold all of their luggage. Yes, Grandpa, Daisy told her grandfather before she called out to her brother. Gary. Coming. And came the voice of a young brown hair boy with his friend Leaf holding a cub bear Pokemon following from behind. Yes, that should do it. The professor checked his belongings. Are we all prepared? Delia too had already arrived with her own belongings with Mr. Mime, who is in fact holding on to a handbag. Yes, Mrs. Delia, we're ready, so let's move inside. Daisy said to her while helping her carry the things she brought. Thank you, Daisy. Daisy just smiled at her. Gary and Leaf were checking on their bags for necessary items. Okay, toothbrush. Check. Extra clothes. Check. Camera. Check. Leaf, do we have to do all this? Gary asked the girl who is holding a clipboard with a pen in hand. Yes, so stop complaining and start checking. Leaf gave him a stern gaze. Okay, then the two continue. And finally all of them took a seat. Grandpa, I feel like we're forgetting something. Daisy turned to her grandfather, who is busy organizing his small strap bag. Really? Daisy nodded, though I can't seem to remember. She put a finger on her cheek, thinking. Me too, I feel like I forget something really important, Delia inquired, but they couldn't figure it out. Okay, you guys, it's time for a head count. Leaf quickly stand up from her seat and pump her hand up, which also somehow hit Gary on the chin, knocking him down. Oh! The two adult and teen chuckled at the girl's enthusiasm. Daisy. Daisy raised her hand. Here. Professor Oak. Professor raised his hand and smiled at the girl. Here, Leaf. Mrs. Ketchum. Delia smiled at the girl. Cuteness. Here, dear. Gary. Gary rubbed his chin and raised his hand. Here. Ash. But no response. Ash, she called out again. Ash? Where's Ash? Leaf asked. Come to think of it, even Ichigo is not here. Gary looked around. Then Delia's hands quickly flew to her mouth, realizing that she had forgotten the two brothers, the boys. The bus then moved. No, Leaf shouted in horror, before she quickly asked the driver to stop for a minute. Please, sir, there's still others coming, Leaf pleaded with Daisy. I'm sorry, but I can't. The bus scheduled to move at 9 a.m., the driver told the girls while he steered. Mime, 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 Mr. Mime shouted to them. All of them looked at the Pokemon. What is my me? Delia asked her Pokemon, then point outside the bus. They all turned and see two figures slowly closing on them while carrying something on both hands. Ichigo, they all shouted. And with our hero who is running with all his strength, Ash. You know that this is all your fault, Ichigo shouted while carrying a raven hair boy on his arm and a large bag on the other. I'm sorry, the boy shouted back. Charmeleon, come on, faster. The black reptile Pokemon huff and puff and run as fast as he could with his mother's scarf again wrap around his neck. Charer. Inside the bus, the whole gang stood close on the side of the bus door. Driver, open the door. The professor requested and the driver opened it in response. Leaf and Gary stood on the edge of the door. Hurry, you too. Leaf reached out her hand with Gary doing the same. I bet it was Ash's fault. Again, Gary sighed to himself. Delia from the small windows of the bus yelled, Ash, Ichigo quickly, while she holds on to her hat. Ichigo then quickly picked up the pace and his feet started to feel the toll from chasing a bus. Okay, Charmeleon, let's do this. The Pokemon nodded and Ichigo throw Ash double. The boy yelled at being thrown. Charmeleon then catch the boy on its back before both trainer and Pokemon shouted that would sound like a battle cry. Ah. Char. Charmeleon and Ichigo muster all the strength they had on their legs and speed up towards the bus. Ash now screaming with tears falling while he hangs tightly on the Pokemon scared for his life. Ah. Almost there, Ichigo thought with Charmeleon beside him. The distance between them quickly close and finally both of them are running beside the moving bus. Ichigo. Leaf extended her hand as far as she could. Ichigo's hand almost reached hers, but Ichigo getting exhausted slowed down a bit before he could reach her. No, Ichigo with a final shout quickly pumped aura into his legs and grabbed Charmeleon and Ash and the bag on his mouth before he threw the two into the bus door. Ah. Char. While flying mid-air, Ash and Charmeleon yelled at the sudden action. Gotcha, Leaf caught Charmeleon with Gary helping her. Char, Charmeleon sighed in relief. Ash, on the other hand, unluckily lands on the hard floor of the bus. Oh, and his mother and Mr. Mime began to fret over the boy. But Ichigo, Daisy whispered and looked back at the still running boy. Why does this always happen to me? Ichigo with anger harshly thought while running. And with a final push, he dived into the bus with all of them moved out of the way for him to land. Ichigo lands perfectly, sweating a bit but still land a perfect landing. Huff huff. All of them quickly moved to him. Ichigo, are you okay? Daisy asked the younger boy who nodded back in response. Leaf just hugged Charmeleon happy that they are all here. Yay, that was awesome. Let's do it again, Ash shouted. But he then quickly felt a chill down his back and turned to see a very angry orange-haired demon looking at him. Huh? Was the only thing he could say before Ichigo grabbed him by the head. Ash, Ichigo with a tick mark on his head asked the boy sweetly. Yay, Ash responds back, while backing up a bit. Let's have a talk. Ash gulped. After a few minutes later, Ash now sitting beside his mother with a large bump on his head. Ash, you shouldn't had overslept, Delia chided her son. I know, Ash rubbed his sore head. Ichigo, who was now sitting with Charmeleon beside him, explained to them why they were late. And that's why we couldn't make it in time. Can't blame him, though he was really excited, but Ichigo trailed off. Ha ha ha. Ash does tend to be a bit overexcited and oversleep. Ha ha ha. The professor slapped on his back and Ichigo grunts from the slap. Well, I'm just glad that we're all here. Daisy breathes out relief while putting a hand over her chest. Leaf nodded agreeing. Well, that ashy boy for ya. Gary just folded his arms while closing his eyes with a smug grin on his face getting amused. I heard that, Ash yelled from the back. And another typical moment of the families occurred on the way to the airport in Vermilion City. Vermilion City. Flying high in the bustling city, a flock of different types of flying Pokemon soar through to the sky, and in these different flocks a group of Swanna flew towards the direction of their homeland with a small ducklet tagging along. Duck, duck, the small blue duck-like Pokemon with its strength tries to keep up with the migrating Swannas but just couldn't follow. After a few more minutes, the small blue duck Pokemon slowly closed its eyes and let gravity take its course from the sky as it stopped flapping its wings, getting too exhausted to continue. Back with our heroes. Okay, you four stay right here while we check in the luggage, Delia instructed the four comprising of the three kids and Ichigo. Okay? Yeah. The three kids responded. Ichigo, on the other hand, was sitting on the seats available on the outer part of the airport with Charmeleon besides him. Don't worry, they won't get into trouble, Ichigo assured to the overboard worried women. Then Delia, Daisy, and Professor Oak with Mr. Mime went into the airport. Brother, where's Darkrai? Ah, did we forget him too? Ash overreacted. Today wasn't his day. Gary and Leaf just looked at Ash as if he was the biggest idiot in the world. Ash, did you forget? Huh? What do you mean? Darkrai's ability. Ash boy. Gary cut into the conversation. Ash then felt something on its legs and jumps up surprise. Ah! The boy looked down and sees Darkrai slowly rising its head from the Ichigo's shadow. Oh, haha, sorry, he scratched his head. And he said that he would be that greatest Pokemon trainer. Gary looked blankly at his rival. Leaf then pulled Ichigo's arm. What is it? Ichigo turned to the girl. Ichigo looked at all the girls here. The girl excitedly points her finger at all the young girls and young women around the area. Ichigo sighed to himself. Oh, how about that one with that cute oddish? The girl kept blabbing on, and on which Ichigo completely ignored. Charmeleon quickly heard something and turned his towards the sky. Charmeleon, what is it? Seeing the sudden movement of his Pokemon, Ichigo asked. Char! Charmeleon pointed his claw at the sky. The other three kids also turned at the two. What's going on? Ash asked with Gary. What's wrong, Charmeleon? Leaf knelt down. It kept pointing at the sky, so they all look up and see something small and blue falling down before they all realized. Ah, it's falling down. Leaf and the other two kids run towards where it will most likely fall. Ichigo and Charmeleon followed from behind. Leaf, Ash, and Gary run around in circles shouting, I got it, I got it. As it was about to hit the ground, I got it, Gary and Ash shouted while running before they hit each other smack. Fortunately, the Pokemon lands on the two heads and bounce off before Leaf catch it. Got you. Ichigo and Charmeleon moved to her. Good job, Leaf. Ichigo praised the girl who beamed at receiving a praise from him. After a few minutes, the four sees that the Pokemon is a duck-like creature with blue in color. It's a ducklet. Gary identified the Pokemon before Leaf looked at its wings. You guys, look at its wings. They see that its wing were swelling up. This is bad. Gary checked the swollen wings. Brother, could you? Ash asked, feeling concern about the Pokemon. Ichigo then pulled out a medical kit which he had received from the professor. It can't use it here, Ash. There's too many people. The three kids slumped down at the idea being rejected. But that doesn't mean that I can't help it, Ichigo assured the three with a smile and showing them the aid box kit. Ichigo quickly cleaned its feathers and plunged a small needle with a small hollow inside. Knee needles. Ash backed up a bit, afraid of the item. The swelling seems to get smaller as air came out of the other end of the injected needle. Okay, that should do it. Ichigo then sprayed some medicine and wrapped the wings with bandages. Wow. The three kids were amazed at his skill. Where did you learn how to do that? Leaf asked him with spark in her eyes. Ichigo carefully placed the Pokemon on the ground and bring out a smell salt to wake up the Pokemon. Duck. From Daisy, of course. She's really skilled. You know. The three kids nodded and Gary smirked proudly at his older sister brilliance. The Pokemon slowly got up and turned to the kids and blinks confusedly. Duck. The kids then tried to explain to the confused Pokemon. Duck. The Pokemon looked down at the ground with a depressed sigh. Ichigo looked at it, feeling something. Ichigo, can you explain why it looks so sad? Leaf pulled his shirt. Ichigo then turned to them and then looked at Gary. Why don't we let Gary explain? The kids blinked at his suggestion. Me? Gary said. Him? Leaf said too with a surprise. Ichigo nodded. Yeah, Gary, we need to help Ducklet. Ash quickly grabbed him on the arm. But, Gary, you've been studying really hard with Daisy about Pokemons for a long time, so I think you can help it. Ichigo trying to persuade him to use what he knows practically. Gary looked at him and then decided to think. Okay, Gary decided and looked up to the sky and sees multiple flying Pokemon and then something pop into his head. I got it, he declared. Ichigo smirked at his action. What is it? Ash and Leaf looked at him. Pokemon usually migrates from different place with a change in season, and this ducklet is no excuse. It must have tried to fly, but with its injury, it couldn't fly with its flock. Gary looked at the Pokemon, who nodded at him, and since ducklet isn't native to Kanto, it must have tried to go to Unova. Leaf and Ash hum in his explanation. I get it, Leaf and Ash said together. I think, Ash mumbled slowly while folding his arms. Leaf and Gary just fell down at his stupidity. Ichigo and Charmeleon chuckled at them. Wait, where's Ducklet? Ash realized. After seeing that the Pokemon disappeared from its spot, the others too began looking around for it. But their search came to an end by the arriving of 3 figures. I hope you 4 didn't wait long, Delia said to them with Daisy and the professor by her side. Come on, our flight is almost leaving, Daisy called out to them while she enters the airport's inner building. Okay, let's go you 3, Ichigo called them too. But, Ash mumbled while looking back with Leaf and Gary doing the same. Ichigo's eyes soften at their behavior. Don't worry about Ducklet, I'm sure it's alright, Ichigo assured the 3. If you say so, Ash and the 2 then followed him into the building. And from behind a food stand, a figure was watching them from the moment they were taking care of the ducklet. The figure then moved quickly towards the flying Pokemon, who seems to walk solemnly. Ducklet suddenly stopped at a shadow covering him and looked up. Duck. Later, inside the airplane, they all settle into their seats with the 3 kids sitting beside Ichigo and the adults on their own. As you can see, we are about to take off, and we advise that all the passengers take their respective seats. Thank you, one of the air hostess speak up from the microphone. I'm so excited, this is my first time riding on an airplane. Ash trembled with excitement. The others understand him, especially Charmeleon, who this time wasn't have any motion sickness. After the airplane ascent into the air and stabilizes for them to move around, how long is this flight? Ichigo asked the professor, who is wearing his summer dress again with a sunglass on top of his head. Let me see. It says 10 hours, the professor answered. Ichigo groaned. Feeling it tugged on his side, Ichigo turned at his brother. What is it, Ash? I need to go, Ash whispered while holding on to his legs. Knowing what the boy meant, why didn't you go before we got in? Ichigo asked back. I forgot, okay. Now can we go? Ash bit his lips. Gary on the side was laughing at him. Ichigo sighed in defeat. Okay, let's go. Ash then hopped out of his seat and followed him to the bathroom. Charmeleon too followed. On their way to the bathroom, Ichigo turned and asked, And why are you 2 following us? He looked at Gary and Leaf. No reason. I need to go too. Ichigo didn't ask anymore. Charmeleon, while walking, smelled something in the air and started sniffing before he runs to the end of the plane, ignoring the strange look the other passengers were giving him. Charmeleon, Ichigo looked where his partner is going. Let's follow, Ash declared and runs off, forgetting about the restroom. Ash stopped, but he was too later as the boy already moved out of sight. Ichigo rubbed his headache, that is Ash. Leaf then just came out of the bathroom. What did I miss? Ash happened. Gary trailed off while looking at the way Ash went. Ichigo then moved. Let's just get this over with. The 2 confusedly followed him. While following Charmeleon, Ash finds himself in what seemed to be a cargo room inside lower part of the plane. Charmeleon, he called out. Ash looked around and sees lots of things from crates to lots of pack boxes. Hearing a shaking sound beside a large box, Ash moved. Charmeleon, is that you? Peeking from the side of the box, Ash sees Charmeleon sitting beside the same ducklet they met and also with a new Pokemon beside the 2. Charmeleon? Ducklet? And who's that Pokemon? The new Pokemon looked like a quadruped being with a dark blue-gray body cover with white fur, also having a tuft on the top of its head in an oval shape with a feline face and red eyes. The Pokemon growled at him. Saul. Ash backed up and nervously said, calm down. I'm not gonna hurt anyone. Charmeleon and Ducklet came to his rescue and explained to the Pokemon. The Pokemon stopped growling and lay back down on the ground. Before Ash could move ahead, he felt a hand on his shoulder. So, this is where you are. Ichigo looked down at the raven hair boy, who just gave him a nervous, goofy grin. The white fur feline Pokemon stood back up at the sudden appearance of other humans. Saul. Ichigo raised a brow at it. Ash Ketchum, why do you have to be such a manky? Leaf pointed her finger at the boy. It's not my fault, I just can't help myself, the boy responds. Gary, on the other hand, was also looking at the growling Pokemon. "You guys, it's an Absol," he exclaimed. The others stopped what they were doing. "Absol," both Ash and Leaf said confusedly. Ichigo then pulled out his Pokedex. "Let's see." Absol, the disaster Pokemon. Absol lives high in the mountainous region and rarely comes down in the areas inhabited by humans. But should anyone seize the Pokemon, a catastrophe is soon to happen. "Wow, it's so beautiful," Leaf squealed and tried to take a closer look. Saul. But she flinched at the aggressive way it acted and fell down. Ducklet and Charmeleon tried to calm down the Pokemon again. "Leaf, are you okay?" Gary and Ash worriedly kneeled down beside the down girl. Oh my butt," she rubbed her back. "What was that for?" Ash glared at the Pokemon, who scoffed at him. "Ash, don't Ichigo stop his brother." Ash turned to him, but Ichigo shook his head. "Ash, you shouldn't forget that not all Pokemon are friendly." The raven-hair boy slowly nodded before he felt a tug on his hand and looked and see Ducklet. "Ducklet, I almost forget that you were here." He excitedly knelt down beside it. And Leaf, who was lying on the floor with Gary beside her, quickly moved towards the feather Pokemon, completely ignoring Gary, who was trying to help her. "A thank you would be nice," the boy yelled at her. Ichigo smiled at how happy the kids were and how Ash and Leaf forget all their trouble at see a Pokemon. "Charmeleon, is this why you ran off?" The black lizard scratched his head. Ichigo just patted his head. "Ducklet, are you okay? Are you trying to get to Unova too?" "Well, I'm glad that you're okay." The kids bombarded the Pokemon with words. Ducklet replied happily, "Duck." "Saul." The Pokemon continued to glare at them. Ichigo turned to the Pokemon. "Thank you." His words surprised the Pokemon. "Saul." Ichigo looked back at the kids and Ducklet. "You're wondering why I thank you." The Pokemon didn't respond, but also didn't move his gaze from Ichigo. "Well, you were the one who helped that Ducklet get into the plane, weren't you?" And the Pokemon slowly nod. "Well, that's your answer, I guess. Maybe what they all said about Absol's being a bringer of destruction." Ichigo paused and turned to the Pokemon before he continued. "Was wrong?" The Pokemon curiously looked back at him. "Or maybe you just want to help." Ichigo kinda complimented the Pokemon while putting both hands on his head. The Pokemon then looked at Ducklet before slowly lay back down on the ground. "Saul, it seems to having a deep thought." Charmeleon began to have a conversation with it, or a one-sided conversation, as the Pokemon responded very little. "Saul, why do you keep talking to me?" The Pokemon looked at Charmeleon. Charmeleon got a confused look at his question. Why shouldn't I?" The Pokemon blinked at his response and then laid his head back down. "Saul, you are strange, especially your trainer." Charmeleon again looked at it confusedly. Ichigo then walked to the kids. "Okay, you three, we need to head back." The kids whined at his statement. "Wah." The kids whined. "Don't complain, okay? The others will be wondering why we're out of our seat for too long." The kids nodded in defeat. "Also, here is something that I made." Ichigo pulled out a basket of puffins and Pokemon food. The kids looked at it with sparkles. "Wow, it looks delicious." Ash slowly moved his hands at the puffins, but slap. Ash recoiled his hand back. "Oh, Leaf, what was that for?" Leaf just gave him a stern look. "Those aren't for us, they're for Ducklet." Ichigo then turned to the fur feline Pokemon. "You can have two. Ducklet won't mind sharing." Ducklet cried happily in response. "Duck." The white fur feline-like Pokemon didn't move from its position, but it heard everything Ichigo said. One at a time they moved and sang their goodbyes. "Happy safe trip, Ducklet," Ash said. "Don't push yourself too much, okay?" Gary smiled at the Pokemon. Leaf patted Ducklet's head. "Bye." Ichigo then guided them. Also one thing," the feline Pokemon looked at Charmeleon. "Charmeleon isn't my trainer, he's my friend," before he followed Ichigo and the others out. Absol just looked as they walked away before he felt a sweet scent beside him and turned to see Ducklet handing him a puffin that Ichigo had given them. "Duck." Absol took a bite out of it and started chewing. "Saul, tasty." So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 8. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Strange and Kind 634 them on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.